Magic the Gathering extended art cards, well, they were rare once, all the way back in Throne of Eldraine when they were first introduced right after Ultimate Masters. But now extended art cards are run-of-the-mill. They appear in every single product, especially collector products.
14 extended art cards, all $10 or less, that are all very Commander playable. Let's take a look at them.
Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat.
Huge shout out to our channel sponsors that allow Jake and I to work on the channel full-time. Card Conduit, the best place to sell your cards. TCG Player, the best place to buy them. Dragon Shield, the best way to protect them. MTG Stocks, which you'll see in the video here today, the best way to track their prices over time. And of course, Moxfield, the best way to put your deck lists on the internet.
Our patrons go a very long way in helping us do this full-time as well. You can see Joel and I are both congested. We're both, used to living on the streets.
Working through the sickness, baby.
Dealing with living in the elements, and now we're both indoors thanks to our sponsors, thanks to our patrons. So if you want to keep us off the streets, consider checking out our Patreon.
We're going to go in Wooborg order today and end with a gold card and a land. But Jake, let's start with Teleportation Circle. 1 white, 3 other enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So if you're not familiar with this card, really great with enters the battlefield, commanders or creatures, artifacts as well. I think something that people are going to notice, Jake, as we go through this list is that you see the price of this card, $7.78 market for Teleportation Circle extended art. But then if we go to the non-extended version, $8.83. I think people are going to notice that a lot of times these extended versions can be the same or cheaper than the base level card.
Yeah, it really just has to do with the variant era and how there are so many different cards. And so a lot of this stuff, if the demand isn't super high, like if it's not like a CEDH card or like some sort of like textured variant, then, like the stuff that is kind of like in the middle, like say a card has 5 variants. You might have the top variant that's way more expensive than everything, but then all the stuff in the middle kind of like settles out, if that card isn't in super high demand. I think that this card is really cool, and I honestly, dude, I hate these kind of effects just because they're so strong.
Same.
So yeah, I mean, this reminds me of like a Brago deck, anything that wants to just abuse ETBs and really, punish your opponents. It's a really good card, and yeah, it does look like it's starting to trend up based on the chart here.
One of the litmus tests that Jake and I use for is a card good is, do I hate this card being played against me? And that's a big checkbox for me.
That's a pretty
Teleportation Circle.
Easy way to do it, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like if a card pisses you off, if you're like, man, now I have to deal with that, then yeah, play that card.
Good card.
Next up, we have Chivalric Alliance, 1 white and 1 other. We have another enchantment here. This time we are from March of the Machine. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card. That's pretty sweet.
Oh, yeah.
And then for 2, you could discard a card and create a 2/2 white and blue knight creature token with vigilance. Wow. I cannot believe that I absolutely missed this card. When we were making those videos about token generators, this would have absolutely been on it. And it's really cool that it has draw built in. What do we know about really good white enchantments? They either have treasure or draw synergy.
Seriously, 2 mana here. The cards that you're drawing, if you don't need them, can turn into more creatures. That ability on the bottom is an instant speed ability. You can respond and create a 2/2 as long as you've got 2 mana and a card in your hand. And there's a lot of shenanigans you can get up to with that. This is another one, Jake. $7.32 for the market version of this card. The base level version, $10. These fly under the radar a lot of times where you've got the extendeds concerned. I think that this will be an enchantment that will stand the test of time, because as more people build decks where creatures are attacking, they're going to be searching for cards like this, and they're going to find this, and we'll need a reprint of this one sooner than later.
Yeah, I like that in the right colors, it fuels a graveyard deck. I'm thinking like junk decks, or we should say Abzan. Those colors that want to put creature cards from the hand into the graveyard. I like this card. This is pretty cool, man. And yeah, I do think it's a sleeper. And it is interesting that an extended art card, again, like we were talking about in the intro, all the way back at Throne of Eldraine, extended art cards were rare. If you go watch like old alpha investment videos, you'll have Rudy being like, we got a box topper, everybody. because the foil versions especially were even more rare.
The third and final white card on our list here today is Grand Crescendo, the extended version. 2 white and X for an instant speed spell. Create X 1/1 creature tokens. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. I read this as ignore the X, ignore the first line. 2 white mana, instant speed. All of your creatures are indestructible. Go ahead and cast your board wipe. I don't care. It is just extra salad on top, Jake, that we can create a bunch of green and white creature tokens.
I love being able to respond to a board wipe. And yeah, at a rate of a heroic intervention, 2 mana,
yes,
are able to give the team indestructible. And yeah, there is some icing on top. Is if you want to dump a bunch into X in response to this, maybe if it's about to be your turn, you have nothing else to do, and it looks like the player before you is about to just board wipe, then yeah, Grand Crescendo, dump all of your mana into it and make a bunch of tokens and then give your team indestructible, and that puts you in a really nice spot. So yeah, these tricks like this are really good, and you could see why this this video is like at the $10 range. This is a really good effect. So seeing this card at around 10 with an all-time low of around $3.83, it's really interesting, and it says a lot. It says a lot about like when these sets come out, don't sleep on these really good effects sometimes, because you know players will find those effects that they want to replicate. This is like an Akroma's Will. This is like a heroic intervention. There are a lot of effects like this, and most of those cards for the players that want redundancy, they all just kind of get to that same level, is how it seems. Talking about a card that has trended down, we have Shark Typhoon, and it does have that 30th anniversary variant that exists, but this goes back to Ikoria, and this was one of the earlier sets as far as collector boosters are concerned. We got the Godzilla variants in here. Shark Typhoon, really good card. It's good late, it's good early, you could cycle it away. It just provides really good value, and the value it does provide, the creature tokens it creates when you cast non-creature spells, just absolutely massive. And this card by itself is such a good engine. It could just, you can run away with the game with this card.
You can see how long people played this in constructed formats. It's still great in Commander, y'all. This one, if you smash it down as the enchantment version, it's got an inevitability to it that you're just going to run away with. This is one of those must answer enchantments as soon as it hits, as far as I'm concerned, because a lot of times I'll see people, because it is a 6-mana enchantment, it's very strong, but I'll see a lot of people slam it and pass, and then they're tapped out. And so that's when you want to try and get this off the board. Believe me, we've got some videos coming up about kill on sight commanders. This is a kill on sight enchantment to me. Dipping down below the $10 range, just around $20 for the foils. Also wanted to make that note with the extendeds. In my opinion, extendeds look better in foil than a base foil does. And so that also may want to be a route that you take, which is go look at the foil versions of these, even though these, the just extended non-foil versions have gotten down into a good pickup range for some of these, in our opinion.
Can you scroll down just a little bit? Because I want to see the all-time high on this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, $30. Okay, so to trend back down to around a $10 range, this is a nice low-risk range for a card that at one point was a powerhouse, is still a powerhouse, and is also one of the early extended art variants that exist in this whole variant era.
This is one that hasn't been trending down, but it has been trending up. And if you want to grab the extended version from the Forgotten Realms set, you probably need to look at it sooner rather than later. Winged Boots. Y'all, Ward 4 might as well say hexproof. You're making my 2 mana removal spell cost 6 mana now? That's all I'm doing that turn, is removing your damn flyer, because I know it's coming at me. 2 to cast this, 1 to equip it, 1 to give maybe the best non-unblockable avoidance, and essentially hexproof. I loved Winged Boots. Unless it's getting played against me, in which case I hate Winged Boots.
Terrible card if it's getting played against you.
Yes.
Feels bad card. Yeah, when I think of cards like this, the cards that come to mind, Swiftfoot Boots, Lightning Greaves. If we're getting something that kind of protection, one that comes to mind as well is Whisper Silk Cloak, for example. I think Whisper Silk Cloak, for the effect it provides, being able to give something unblockable is a big deal. Winged Boots cost less to play and less to equip, And it pretty much does the same thing, right? It creates a flyer, and flying is evasion. And so that's like, you know, not as good as a unblockable, but it's up there. A lot of the time in Commander, your board gets pretty clogged, and having an evasive flyer is a big deal. But yeah, that Ward 4, man, this really puts it in the upper echelon of artifacts that provide protection, because we do essentially have a hexproof, and then we do have a artifact that provides flying. Most of those I kind of look over, but the big selling point on this card is that Ward 4. Yeah, dude, this card is just a lot of power creep going on here, in my opinion. Archmage Emeritus Extended Art. This is a card that we've talked about on this channel before, but it has Magecraft, and whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. Do you like to draw cards? I do. And this 2/2 will get that done.
Big lightning rod of a creature here. This is one that I find myself building into more and more decks. At first, you know, you see a card like this and you're like, oh, okay. But then time passes and you build more and more decks, and this finds its way into more and more 99s, and you're like, oh wow, this is a really good one, and it just needs to be in these casual commander lists, because this will just help you run away with the game. This is how you keep
in that
full on
zone
resources.
where it's like you never hate having it. You know, it's like you draw it and you're like, oh well, that card's an engine, and we know that that's going to be good as soon as we get to it. So it's like you might wait till 5 and then play it for 4, and then make sure that you have something to cast in response to a removal or something like that.
Exactly.
That way you could just like, great card.
Holebreaker Horror. This is that creature that your opponent puts into the graveyard and then reses, and everybody's like, I've got to figure out a way to kill this thing, because now that person's going to win, because they got a turn 3 Holebreaker Horror. This card is ridiculous. I mean, every single one of my reanimator lists, if it's got blue, this is the creature. This is the end. This is what we're going for right here. I'm going to close out the game like this, because from now on, anytime I'm committing crimes, and I know it's anytime we cast a spell, but I'm going to say I'm committing crimes with this deck. I'm returning spells. I'm returning permanents. I'm removing things that do make it to the board. I love that this doesn't say once per turn. Oh, God, this creature's scary.
Yeah, notable, it did just get a reprint in Fallout, and we're seeing an adjustment down in price. You can even see on the MTG stocks chart how it started to kind of like tick up, and then it starts kind of like trending down. We did just get a reprint, but this extended art version does have a premium over the other versions. All-time low of around $5, and you can see all-time high of around $19.98, so around $20. So yeah, this is a card that's very strong. Fun fact, Joel was just talking about crimes. Crimes come out of Thunder Junction. And we're also getting, you know, a modal spell commander. This is not a modal spell. So even though it has different modes that you can do, make sure you know the difference between what is modal and what isn't, depending on even if it has modes. Yeah, I think that this card is really cool. It's a really good card. And yeah, definitely a must answer. And God, I hate Flash, dude. The F word is so offensive.
Not financial advice, but this is a pretty good time to be looking at Holebreaker Horrors in general. Like Jake said, we got a version of it in Fallout. We also saw it in the precons for Eldraine. Precons, ladies and gentlemen. So base copies of this are going to be driven down as Wizards of the Coast makes it very clear that they want this to be a top-end blue creature.
I remember when Diabolic Intent got spoiled in Brothers War, and this was a card that everybody was super hyped on, and we can see it's just kind of like hovering around this, you know, like this $10 or $8 range here, and it's pretty much the same price as its regular version. So this is just a tutor spell, but you need a creature to sack, and it does exactly what a Diabolic Tutor does.
Yeah, Diabolic Intent.
Or demonic.
Right,
Not
exactly. But honestly, and we've said this before on the channel, Demonic Tutor with upside for some decks.
Yeah.
Sacrificing a creature is going to be a good thing for some decks. In general, though, really good tutor spell, especially if you've got creature tokens that you're creating. All-time high. This was one that was just crazy scarce until it was reprinted. The original version, plane shift version, over $40 here. We got some really crazy prices on this, but now grabbing the extended for under $10, or the base copy if you do want it. Like Jake said, this is one of those weird ones where the base copy is about the same price And so you can grab yourself a really good tutor for cheap. Incarnation Technique is one of the most overlooked reanimation spells that has been printed in recent memory. 1 black, 4 other with Demonstrate. Sorcery says mill 5 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it fuels your graveyard, gives you hits if you don't, so you can Hail Mary a little bit with this one if you absolutely need to. But it's Demonstrate, y'all. When you cast this spell, you may copy it, and I'm going to read this text like it actually reads, not like it's printed on the card. When you cast this spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose the opponent that has no creatures in their graveyard and go ahead and let them copy it as well. They're going to get to mill 5 and return a creature, but who knows what they're going to hit. And you get to do it twice, you little reanimation goblin. You came prepared for this. Y'all, this card is so good. I have blown games out with it. I've had myself just absolutely crushed by this. I think somebody played this against me last Friday during Commander Play Day. Go join the Patreon if you want to jump in and play Commander with us once per month. But Incarnation Technique, this is one that I would grab a copy of, whether it's the extended or the base, because this spell is so fantastic, dude.
Yeah, so this under $10 here, but you can see all-time low of $1.25. And this is another one where I'm like, I play Carador. It's my graveyard deck. Yeah. And I'm looking at this going, why don't I run this? Because it just seems so strong. That deck kind of works in like a combo centric kind of thing where, I want to get Machias or Triskelion or Walking Ballista and win the game like that just through a pretty basic infinite combo. Seems like it fills the graveyard nicely. I can copy the spell so I could do it twice, right? And then I could just get 2 things back. Is that what I'm reading here?
Oh, yeah. And you get to mill 10 cards. Massive. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's freaking massive. Yeah, it's extremely good. And it's something that I should be considering. And it makes me feel like I'm a terrible player for not knowing it existed.
That's why Jake and Joel cover these kind of cards in these kind of videos.
Yeah, because there's just so many gosh darn cards these days that it's so easy to miss stuff. This was from Commander 2021, dude. Like, where the hell was I? Oh my gosh. Next up, we have Reign of Riches, getting into our red cards here. 2 red and 3 other enchantment. Whenever Reign of Riches enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. First spell you cast each turn that mana from a treasure token was spent to cast has Cascade. So we're getting a big effect here. If you are in treasure, if you're running like big mana stuff, then you're probably going to want to be running Reign of Riches to get the most out of those big spells and cascade into stuff and just build your board. Very strong card here, and God, I love enchantments. So good.
This one's insane. If you untap with this, you're popping off, because all you got to do is toss 1 treasure into the mix and suddenly that spell has Cascade. What are you talking about? You're blowing my mind right now. Streets of New Capenna.
Run it alongside Descent of Avernus.
Right.
And just like red, black. It's such a Prosper card, but there's so many ways to just run treasure synergy without Prosper as well.
Oh yeah. Streets of New Capenna is the set that just keeps on giving as far as commander cards go. I think every now and then I see some random card like this and I'm like, I haven't read this card before. I've never even seen this card before. Where did this come from? And sure enough, it'll be a Streets of New Capenna commander card. But Reign of Riches, if you want to absolutely start casting your entire deck with your treasure tokens, grab you a copy of this. The most important part of this card is the F word. 1 green, 2 other, 2/2 troll wizard flashes in and says commanders you control have hexproof. I don't care about the rest of the text. It can exist, but what this is a hexproof instant speed on your commander that leaves a body behind that you can take advantage of, and also happens to buff your commander a little bit, even though we don't care too much about this. This is one of those rare extended ones where it's a powerful card, but the extended is cheaper than the base copy for some reason. Really good time to go and pick up Guardian Augmenter. If you've got a commander that is vital, that is a kill on sight commander, if suddenly you're running Voja, it's already got ward, but people are going to be saving removal to get through that ward. Suddenly hexproof and Voja's ready to pop off. That's just one example.
There's so many good things with Flash going on these days. They have equipment. Like all the equipment these days comes with Flash, and then when it enters, you get to attach it for free.
Yeah.
Like what is happening?
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from that equipment side, this is a great card. It's another card where I'm just like, Commander 2021. It really had some stuff. Taunt from the Rampart, extended art. And Nelly Borka should come to mind here. 1 white, 1 red, 3 other for sorcery Goad all creatures your opponents control until your next turn those creatures can't block. Blowout. Absolute blowout card. Especially if you're an aggro and you just want to get through and be able to swing at people's shields down.
Oh, you are running this if you're not an aggro, bro. You want all for 5 mana, none of your opponent's creatures can block anymore? Oh my god.
Right. Yeah, and everything has to swing, and it's swinging at everybody else, which is also working toward your goal, which is get everybody's shields down and get everybody weaker for your big blowout move.
Because they can't block for your opponents either. Like, until your next turn, those creatures can't block, period.
Right.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, everybody's swinging, everybody is shields down, and it doesn't say, like, exile this card, so you could get this card back. You know, it's harder to do that in red and white, but I do think that it's a very strong card, and it is a moment to end the game is when you're playing this.
One of the top utility lands printed in recent memory, Plaza of Heroes, I feel like is going into every commander deck I'm building recently. Add a colorless, add a mana of any color to cast legends, add a mana of any color among legendary permanents you control, or the part that makes this card the most playable. 3 mana, exile it, target legendary creature your commander, gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. I've saved my commanders multiple times with this card. This is a card that I would assume that they can see how ubiquitous it could get, and I hope we'll keep the price down with multiple reprints. But Plaza of Heroes extended from Dominaria United. This one, the first one, just under 10. And look at the foil, Jake, just at 12. These extendeds just act so weird sometimes.
Some people get mad at them because they think they curl, and so they avoid the foils.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of people that get cranky at the foils these days. I don't have a lot of issue with recent foils. Just speaking for myself, not licking the boot, but I'm just saying that a lot of the foils recently I haven't had any issues with, but there have historically been foil problems, and we see that all the time. So yeah, I'm not super surprised that the price is pretty close, because you have a lot of people that just want a playable version, and so that version ends up rising to the top. This card is a no shit button. I remember when the card first came out and people were like, oh, it's not that good, you can only do that effect once. Yeah, you do exile this card,
or like you're gonna hold open 4 mana for that. Yes,
right, exactly, and it's like, in some situations when you're playing casual commander, not everybody is in the sweatiest pods, right? So you're gonna have times where you're gonna have that mana up and you're able to do this. You know, I would challenge everybody to think about another spell that gets exiled at the end of playing it. Teferi's Protection. You know, are people going to stop playing a spell like that just because you get to use that effect once and then it goes away? No, I don't think so. So having an extra oh shit button for maybe a high cost commander, you know, this to me is something where I'm like, yeah, I would probably want to put this in Karavik. I don't know why it's not in there, but it seems like a good spot for it. It's a 2-colored deck, so you're not like mana starved for colored mana. And I mean, you could still add mana of any color to cast a legendary spell, so it still works for my commander.
Right.
But having a way to protect something top heavy seems smart. That's all I want to say is, like, yeah, you probably do need to be running this if your commander is super expensive. Because, dude, when you get into like some of those games, being able to use this effect once is all you're really going to need, is to get out of that bind when it happens.
There are a lot of commanders where once you've built to your commander, you've played a couple of enchantments, a couple of artifacts, maybe some creatures along the way, you slam your commander, and then there are so many commanders nowadays that have draw a card printed on them, are so synergistic with all the other pieces you've already laid down, that really at that point playing further stuff onto the board becomes unnecessary, because you're like, well, I'm at a board state now where they've got to answer or I'm gonna win.
Yeah, and so you don't want to overextend because you know that a farewell is coming.
Exactly. So you just sit there, do your thing, run your synergy, fill your hand back up, and you wait until they answer it. And Plaza of Heroes just puts that off even longer. Lets you stay on that, like, I've got my stuff situated and I'm ready to roll train even longer than you were going to previously. So Plaza of Heroes are a fantastic card. Love this card.
it's just really cool when you can put a good effect like that on a land, because then you gain more flexibility in the deck, because this card still floats for colorless. It still floats for colored mana for your commander. Yeah, it's amazing. It's just amazing. And speaking of farewell,
yeah, Jake had to say it
farewell.
that the farewell is always coming. We skipped a white card, so we're wrapping back around because you did hear us say 14 cards. Farewell extended art. This is the Doctor Who version. This version doesn't bother me though, even though it's a licensed product with a real person actor on it. The paint, the art is painterly enough that it sort of doesn't cross that strange uncanny valley for me, sure, where I'm like, oh, look, David Tennant. But there's also sort of like a fun fantasy mystical, sort of leaning towards this art. And so this is a version that I would be happy to play regardless of if I like Doctor Who or not. It's not the 10th Doctor's Farewell, which is a card that I would not want to play.
Sure. Yeah, right. It does the exact same thing. No, yeah, it's Farewell. We don't need to talk about how good this card is. It has a beautiful suite of abilities that is pretty much a game reset. A lot of people don't like the card, but for people that want this kind of coverage, then go for it. If you can really, command the game after playing this, then play Farewell. It's a great board wipe. Not going to hate on it, but yeah, it's a good card to end the video with because it's called Farewell.
Farewell.
So, we talk about how great all of our $10 patrons are at the enhanced level.
Special shout out to all of our patrons who support us at the $10 level or higher over on Patreon. All of these patrons get access to an exclusive video weekly from Jake and I that will not be on the main channel. It's only posted on the Patreon. So go check that out and see if that's a perk that you want to support us for, or any of the other perks that we got there. I got to start by saying BMAC though. Thank you very much for being a supporter for so long, my friend.
Yes, BMAC. We've got a lot of folks at this level, but we are talking about 10 of them today. We got Louis Trigo,
Robert Carriola,
Justin M. Best,
Zach M,
Dominique,
William Isbista,
Otto. Oh man, I knew I needed to practice this last name. Otto,
Corey Norman,
Gin and Tonic,
and Kenneth B. Y'all, thank you so much for supporting us over on Patreon. Go check it out and see if it's a good fit for you.
We appreciate you very much.